lived in Cornwall for many years. Even before I moved here, I used to holiday here all the time. I was always fascinated with the secrets that this place has. So I decided to make a series of short films where I'm going to show you the secrets of Cornwall. Welcome to Cornwall, the UK's most southerly county. Every year millions of sun seekers and holidaymakers flock to Cornwall in seek of fun, relaxation and the stunning views of the British countryside. But there is a lot more to this county than ice creams and pasties. For hundreds of years, Cornwall has been at the cutting edge of technology. The Industrial Revolution was kick-started here because of the need to drain water from the ever-deepening tin and copper mines. That was the major industry here in the 1800s and 1900s. This film is not about mining though, it's about communication. And although you may not realise it, Cornwall is vital to the world's communication. Many of you may have some sort of idea how computers talk to each other. If you know a bit about computers, you will probably understand how IP addresses and DNS servers work. But do you actually know how the internet physically works? Do you know how your computer connects to a server at Facebook or YouTube in the USA? In the last 20 years, our world has changed immeasurably. The reason for this change was the introduction of the internet. Today we are all massive consumers of information, and the internet has literally changed our world and how we view it. As internet service providers push new and faster connections into our homes, the backbone of the internet needs to increase in capacity. It's hard to imagine that the internet is a physical thing. All you see when you click on a link is the next page or a video. But that data has to get from a computer somewhere to you at home or work. Back before 2000, only a fraction of us with computers were dialing up to services like FreeServe, AOL and CompuServe. We did this with a 56k modem, an unbelievably slow speed by today's standards. This low demand meant the existing telephone network could carry the data into your home from your ISP via your local telephone exchange. But it soon became clear that capacity needed to increase, and exchanges were upgraded to fibre optic cables and ADSL was introduced, giving us the first broadband connections. There was, however, a big problem. Services like Facebook and YouTube hosted their sites in data centres in the USA. This meant each time you clicked on a picture of your friend out drinking in the bar down the road, you were effectively sending a request to a computer in the USA, and the information was sent back to you from halfway around the world. International capacity needed upgrading, big time. The dot-com boom saw massive projects to increase worldwide capacity spring up overnight. Satellite communications could not handle the capacity needed. Satellites are very expensive, slow to build, and capacity is limited with no potential for upgrades. There is also another problem with satellites: latency. The speed from point to point is very slow. You remember those awful satellite delays on the Eurovision Song Contest? Well, what's the point in your ISP selling you an internet connection that promises to load a web page in a quarter of a second when it takes 2 seconds to get that web page to them before they can even start to get it to you? It wouldn't work. What was needed was an undersea cable network, one that connected the countries of the world together. Interestingly, this was something Cornwall already had for over 100 years. In the 1840s, the telegraph was the way in which people communicated. It was the height of modern technology, and the British Empire realised the importance of instant communication. The idea of a cable across the seabed grew, and by 1853, successful cables were laid across to Ireland, Belgium and the Netherlands. Shortly afterwards, the first transatlantic cable was laid, and it went from Ireland all the way to North America. Porthcurno in Cornwall became a hub of worldwide communications. Cables left here for the Empire, and the age of instant communication was born. Even today, modern fibre optic cables land at Porthcurno. But it's not just this beach. Cables land at 6 other beaches in the county. The cables are only part of the system though. There is a massive network of landing stations, secret buildings and cable routes that are dotted across the county, all hidden in plain view for anyone to see. We're going to take you on a journey of how this video is getting into your home. And if you live or work in Cornwall, it may surprise you at just what's going on under the road outside your house. It's taken us 4 long years to figure out how it all works. That's how long we've been making this film. We also have no way to verify if we are actually correct, so please excuse us if we've made any mistakes. My interest in undersea cables started in 2006 when I was on holiday in Cornwall. I visited Goonhilly Earth Station and the tour guide told us a bit about the cables, and it sparked my interest.
The Goonhilly Earth Station is not just a satellite Earth station. We do in fact carry a vast proportion of BT's international cable traffic through the site, and we have undersea fibre optic cables that go from here to every continent on Earth. And our latest undersea cable goes out to the Far East, and it can carry up to 500,000 telephone calls, internet links and the like at any one time.
After my visit to Goonhilly, I was driving around the Land's End area, and I drove past this building. My attention to detail immediately spotted that this bungalow was not a bungalow. I put 2 and 2 together and figured out that this building was a cable landing station. A simple giveaway is the ludicrous amount of manhole covers in the road outside. Another giveaway is the GPS antenna outside. This is used as a hyper-accurate timing reference for the equipment inside. It's probably used to determine the transmission speed of the data from point to point. This cable landing station is owned by Cable & Wireless. The Hugo cable terminates here, which lands at Porthcurno Beach. Hugo stands for High Capacity Undersea Guernsey Optical. Although once it lands on Guernsey, it continues on to France, and it forms an important connection across to continental Europe. Let's take a trip down to the beach and see what's going on down there. Well, first off, it wouldn't be right to not mention the Telegraph Museum. It's dedicated to the fascinating subject of the history of the undersea cables. It houses lots of very old equipment and details the history of cable laying and the development of the technology up to the modern day. If you ever come to Cornwall, in my opinion, this is one of the must-see attractions and worth every penny of the entrance fee. Just before the beach is the cable hut. Here you can see the old telegraph cables coming up from the beach and where they are terminated. Just outside the hut, several cables often become uncovered. Well, here we are, Porthcurno Beach, probably one of the best beaches in the world. Its crystal clear waters and golden sand make it a mecca for people in the summer. All these people have no idea of the extent of what's going on beneath them. There are, however, a few clues that this beach has been cabled. Of course, we can't see the cables now. They are buried under hundreds of tons of sand. So how many cables land here at Porthcurno? 7 modern cables land here, making it the busiest beach for cables in the UK. Let's go through them. Flag Atlantic Interlink. FLAG stands for Fibre Optic Link Around the Globe. It's owned by Global Cloud Exchange, which is one of India's largest telecommunications companies. This is the Interlink cable. It connects the main transatlantic and Asian cables into Europe. This short cable is heading off to France. Rioja 2 links the UK to Belgium, but this cable was withdrawn from service in 2006 and is not currently used. Hugo. This is the cable that lands in the pretend bungalow up the road. It's owned by Cable & Wireless, who are currently owned by Vodafone. It goes to Guernsey, where it is then connected onto fibre optic cables that are bundled in with the power cables that supply the Channel Islands with power from the French mainland. The Hugo cable started its life known as Gemini, a transatlantic cable that ran all the way to America, but it quickly outgrew its capacity and was superseded by other cables, so parts of it were recovered in 2006 and it was installed as Hugo. Hugo, however, was failing, so in June 2015 the system was upgraded and new repeaters were installed, giving the system a much needed revamp. The landing station was also upgraded with modern security cameras and intrusion detectors. TAT 12 and 13. TAT stands for Transatlantic Telecommunications. This is the 12th consortium-led project, although it was also given the title TAT-13 because it was the first ring configuration, and it was named in 2 segments. The use of a ring configuration meant that any single fault on the cable would not disrupt the service, as data could be relayed the other way round. Because of the massive $740 million cost of the system, no single company could afford to build it. So a consortium of telecoms giants co-funded the cable, each taking a slice of the capacity. It was installed in 1996 and was the first cable to use erbium-doped fibre amplifiers in the repeaters. This means that to upgrade the system, you only have to upgrade your landing stations and not the repeaters, which could be miles under the ocean. TAT-12 was initially running at 10 gigabits per second, but was later upgraded to 30 gigabits per second. And although it was reported to be withdrawn from service in 2008 after being in service for just 12 years, it's still showing as active on navigation charts. BT iOS 1. This newly laid cable to the Isles of Scilly used to be the Rioja 1 cable. It used to run from Porthcurno to Spain, but it laid disused for many years, so it was cut, recovered and relayed to the Isles of Scilly in 2016 as part of the European-funded Superfast Broadband project to get Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly connected with fibre broadband. And finally we have Flag Europe Asia. This is part of the 28,000 kilometre flag cable that ventures all the way down to Japan, connecting 17 countries on the way. The cable entered service in 1997 and started operation at 10 gigabits per second. It's possible that this cable has been upgraded, but we don't know for sure. It's hard to imagine all of these cables landing here on this one small beach. What we could really do with is a great big storm to take away all of the sand so we could see them. Fortunately, back in March 2014, that's exactly what happened, and I recorded this whilst out walking my dogs. You can see a massive concrete duct with cables emerging.
I don't know. But this is a fibre optic cable coming up from probably America. There's a toe.
You can also see other cables going up the hill.
Oh, this has got a big old connector on it, look. This is a new one too. It's got nylon on it. Oh, look. Oh. Oh. Oh.
Come in.
Cables seem to frequently land near lifeguard huts. This is probably due to the security benefits of having an official person near the cable. We don't know if the lifeguards were aware of what they're actually guarding. It's very likely that the expensive armoured sea cables stop here and are spliced onto cheaper land cables, with the splice probably buried under this concrete slab. A quick look around in the scrub reveals this manhole with a Mercury Communications logo. Mercury later became Cable and Wireless, so this is probably the Hugo cable. A quick look through the keyhole reveals a second lock cover and a warning sign telling us that 10,000 volts are present on the line. This voltage is used to power the repeaters on the line. We can follow this cable up to the car park and up the road. Alongside the path to the beach is a man-made mound. This landscaping is probably covering a similar concrete duct system that we saw on the beach, or maybe even a tunnel. In the car park we see a single small manhole cover which has these 2 small covers. These small covers cover a padlock which prevents unauthorised access into the chamber. These lockdown manholes are only found on critical cables. Let's take a look inside the chamber. Well, we can't see any cables, but the ladder suggests that the chamber is big enough for a person, so there's probably a tunnel running in here with all of the cables tacked against the wall. There is also some evidence that the cables might not go via the road. They might head up to the landing stations across the fields. Here are some Google Earth images which have been rolled back in time where you can clearly see something has been buried in the fields. If this is a cable route, it is possibly the route for the TAT-12 cable or the Flag Europe cable. The roads in this area are literally bursting with manholes. The whole area seems to be connected in a big ring configuration. Manhole covers from each company are present at each facility in the area, and you can clearly see the cable routes by the manhole covers. Let's follow this configuration of 4 manholes around the area to see where it takes us. The manhole covers are marked Cable and Wireless, Level 3, Route 3 and Route 4. Level 3 is a large American telecoms company. They have a large facility not far from here. Other manholes in the area are MFSC, which is an old American company that no longer exists. This network also has covers marked WorldCom and Verizon. As MFFC and WorldCom no longer exist, the cables they owned are now used by Verizon. There are also manhole covers marked with CATV. These are widely used to indicate cable TV services. However, Cornwall has never had a cable TV franchise, so there is no cable TV network in the county. We believe that this 1, 2, 3, 4 configuration may be called the GTN ring. The GTN ring is BT's international backhaul network. GTN most likely stands for Global Telephone Network. If we follow the GTN ring, we soon come to this building. This is the Skewjack cable landing station. It's built on the site of Skewjack Farm. The building connects with the Flag Atlantic cable, which lands at White Sands Bay a few miles away. Also landing here are the 2 Flag Europe-Asia cables. One arrives and one leaves. Flag Europe-Asia was bought online in 1997 and the Atlantic cable was bought online in 2001. Flag Atlantic has a staggering capacity of 2.4 terabits per second. The site here is massive, and like all landing stations, it has dual backup generators to keep the system running in the event of a power cut. Interestingly, the building won an architectural award in 2002. Can you see the gates? It's the only clue as to the building's purpose. Before we carry on with our journey, Skewjack holds a massive secret. In November 2014, Skewjack was named by the whistleblower Edward Snowden as the location for an intercept device codenamed Nigella. This device was placed onto the cable with the assistance of Cable and Wireless. This access point then feeds into GCHQ, and it is a vital component in their Tempora program. Tempora is a Big Brother mass surveillance program which is run out of GCHQ Bude in North Cornwall. This program's goal is to collect and record all of the data that flows across the internet via the undersea cable network. It does this by tapping into these high capacity cables which carry data from around the world. The reason that this happens here in Cornwall is that because for a few short miles the data is on British soil, and GCHQ does not need a warrant to intercept data from foreign sources. So where is this Nigella? Well, it can only be in a few places, so let's make a few guesses. The first thing to remember is that Snowden said that it was actually at Skewjack. But it is possible that he does not know the exact location. The first option is that Nigella could be inside the building. This would mean Global Cloud Exchange would be complicit in the handing over of all of its customers' data to a foreign intelligence service. This is totally unethical, so highly unlikely. Just outside of Skewjack is a manhole cover, with MFSC welded on. This is very odd. Could Nigella be in here? It is also possible that Nigella is actually on the farm. This farm is owned by Rodders, a local family-run dairy producer that produces a local delicacy, clotted cream. Another possibility is that the intercept takes place here in the field. In Google Earth we can see a disturbed line from here to this tiny unmanned building. It's possible that this houses the equipment, as a cable does seem to run across the fields to here. Let's follow the main cables back to Porthcurno and see what's present on the way back. Just back from Skewjack we have this area. There is evidence that a cable crosses this section of land. And there is also a strange antenna in the scrub. We know that this building is owned by Cable and Wireless, and that Cable and Wireless was the company that supplied access to the flag cable. So it's possible Nigella is in here, or in one of the many manhole covers outside in the road. This building did have a major security upgrade in 2015, shortly after the Snowden documents were leaked. There are also a few other places that could be hiding this device. Let's head back to Skewjack and continue on with the tour. Running behind Skewjack is a small country lane. Travelling down this lane, it is very apparent by the number of locked manhole covers that a lot of data is flowing down this road. In fact, I'd probably say this road has a large proportion of the world's data travelling just beneath the asphalt. A short drive later, we arrive at this Fort Knox of a building. This is BT Land's End. This is the landing station for TAT 12 and 13, and the Isles of Scilly 1 cable. It is also the landing station for the disused Celtic and Rioja 2 cables. On the site are two 9.2 metre dishes that service the Avanti satellite broadband and satellite data services. These two satellite dishes are usually positioned towards the Hylas 1 and Hylas 2 satellites, but they are capable of pointing to other satellites. These dishes transmit to the satellites on 28, 29 and 30 GHz and receive on 18, 19 and 29 GHz. Also on the site of BT Land's End is a fully preserved nuclear bunker. You can just see the top of the structure here. From BT we continue on down the road and we pass through the middle of Brew Farm. Brew Farm also holds a communications secret. The microwave communications antennas on the side of this barn give it away, as too does this power transformer, which is marked NTL. NTL is now owned by Virgin Media. Inside this tatty looking farm building is Virgin Media's access into the undersea cable network. If you're a Virgin Media customer watching this video on YouTube, there's a good chance that the video is being routed through the equipment in this building. As we venture down the road, we eventually come to this strange building. It looks like a landing station, but it's officially labelled as a relay station on maps. Officially, this building belongs to Verizon, the US communications company, but however I suspect this building houses GCHQ equipment. There are a staggering number of manhole covers here, including a number of CATV manhole covers. These chambers appear to be full to the top with sand and have a second cover inside them. On the driveway there is a reel of multi-core fibre optic cable. Whilst filming this footage we were observed by discreet security, and we were later contacted by the police who asked us what we were doing. This is why we believe that this building is more than just a relay station. As we travel away, we turn right and eventually come to the rear entrance of the Trevorian Farm complex, which is close by Trevere Farm. This is also the way to access White Sands Cable Station. White Sands Cable Station is a massive building. It's too big for the 3 cables that land here, so it's obvious that something else is here as well. We believe that a security contingent is present in the building. They always seem to be aware of when we film here, and we've spotted vehicles on the forecourt in a state of readiness. So why the need for all this security? Well, 2 of the cables that land here are called Atlantic Crossing 1. They are a privately owned ring cable which operates at 120 gigabits per second. Not the highest capacity by any standards, but what AC1 does have is a short latency. This system can send data across to the USA in 65 milliseconds. So what's the big deal? Well, this system carries all of the stock exchange data between London and New York. The stock exchanges need to be as close to perfectly synchronised as possible. Any delays could result in traders being able to circumvent the system. Think about it, all trading is automated and computer controlled these days. So if a trading computer knew gold was rising in London before the New York Stock Exchange knew about the rise, that computer could buy gold and in a millisecond later watch it rise. The stock exchange must operate on the fastest network possible to prevent the whole trading system being undermined. White Sands Cable Station was built by Global Crossing, a company which is now owned by Level 3 Communications. Level 3 also operate one other cable from here, UK Island Crossing 1. You can see a staggering number of manhole covers in the main road out the front. There is a road to the farm, and here is a sign warning of no access to the cable station. Just behind White Sands, but still on the same Trevorian farm complex, is a much smaller building. This is the landing station for the ESAT-1 cable. This is another UK to Ireland cable. This cable is owned and operated by BT Ireland. Along the main road we come to a junction. In the road there is evidence that this is a major junction. This small patch of grass has a massive array of manholes, and there is a small scar and a fibre optic cable marker. There is a cable running across the field towards the Verizon building and the duct network. You can clearly see the cables running through the field on Google Earth. This is White Sands Bay. 7 cables land here at 3 different locations. They are TAP 12, which goes to BT Land's End and completes the ring configuration, the disused BT Celtic cable, Flag Atlantic North, which terminates at Skewjack, Atlantic Crossing 1 from Europe and Atlantic Crossing 1 from the USA, both of which terminate at White Sands Cable Station. ESAT-1, which terminates in the small building behind White Sands, and finally UK Island Crossing 1, which also goes to White Sands. There are also other old disused telegraph cables which land here, which can sometimes be seen when the sand is moved by storms. In an amazing stroke of luck, we happened to be here filming when the cables were exposed. Here you can see the 2 Atlantic Crossing 1 cables. They are massively protected with articulated armour. This cable is the BT ESAT cable. It has sustained some serious damage to the outer protection, so we reported it to the owner, who later came and repaired the damage. The cables are protected by articulated armour whilst on the beach. This prevents people coming into contact with them, as there are dangerously high voltages and high power laser light present on the cable. All of the cables going up to the Trevorian complex run up here underground to the triangle of grass. If we carry on up past White Sands, we eventually come to a left-hand road which leads to Land's End Airport. This is the way a set of cables from Verizon leaves the area. If we carry on up towards Penzance, we eventually turn right towards St Berrien. Down here is the main substation for the area. Also here is a microwave tower in Surf Telecom presence. Surf Telecom are a communications company that is operated by Western Power Distribution. They run fibre optic cables alongside its power network throughout the southwest. They carry a lot of smaller ISPs data down to the area and hand off to the undersea operators. The microwave antennas here at Brew Farm, White Sands Cable Station and Skewjack bring the high frequency trading or HFT microwave signals from the many trading communications companies into the area. This is financial and stock exchange data and is designed to be as fast as possible. The data is then sent across the Atlantic in 65 milliseconds. As we travel up the road to St Berrien, we come across the GTN ring's apparent start and stop point. There are 2 sets of covers very close to each other. In the town of St Berrien there is a lone cable TV manhole just in front of the church. This is close to an MSFC manhole. Leaving St Berrien, heading back down to Land's End, this right hand turn has the GTN ring and another CATV cover. But we carry on up to this junction where we have a set of 4 manholes hiding in the grass. This is the GTN ring's route for leaving the area. It takes a fantastic route all the way through Penzance and travels all the way to Helston. On the way to Helston, we were lucky enough to be passing this bridge, which was being resurfaced. You can clearly see the 4 ducts of the GTN ring which have been uncovered by the resurfacing works. The GTN ring is present here at the corner of RNAS Culdrose, the Royal Navy Air Station just outside the town of Helston. From here we travel a short distance to the Goonhilly Earth Station. A lot has changed since I visited Goonhilly in 2006. Just after I visited, it was announced that the site would close and cease operation. That, however, was the official line, but operations kept going, and in 2011 BT signed a lease with Goonhilly Earth Station Limited. Goonhilly Earth Station is a fascinating place and one that is steeped in communications history. The first antenna was built in 1962, called Antenna 1 and dubbed Arthur. This dish played a key role in some of the most monumental broadcasts in history, including the first satellite link, the Apollo moon landings and the first Live Aid concert. The site has over 60 communications dishes and is also the home to the Avanti satellite broadband service we saw down at Land's End. They have another 2 dishes here so they can operate between the 2 sites. Several undersea cables land at Goonhilly. The largest is SeaMe 3, which stands for Southeast Asia, Middle East and Western Europe 3. It was built in 2000 by France Telecom and China Telecom, and at 39,000 kilometres it's one of the largest cable systems ever created. It lands at 39 locations across the globe and is currently carrying a massive 4.6 terabits per second across the world. Also at Goonhilly is the UK Channel Islands cable and also the disused Spain 4 cable. There are markings that suggest a cable may travel across the downs. But there are 2 ducts that run in the road down to Cannock Sands. If we take a look in the chambers, you can clearly see SeaMe 3 arrival and leaving cables. Further on down by the beach we can see the now disused UK Spain 4 cable. This beach is home to some clues that it's been cabled. The 2 sets of locked manhole covers leading down are one, the telephone cable warning marker is another, and this warning notice which was placed when they became uncovered a while back. The sea cables are spliced onto a land cable under this concrete slab beside the lifeguard hut. This old house overlooking the beach has always been suspiciously unoccupied. The mystery of its purpose is heightened when you discover the name of the building is the Cable House. The mystery could be explained when we take a look at the recent landslip leading up to the house. We can see a very old undersea telephone cable which was heading up to the Cable House. Having said that, if GCHQ wanted to tap into SeaMe 3, this would be an ideal place to do it. Although there is almost certainly a GCHQ presence on the Goonhilly site. Local stories of Goonhilly talk of underground facilities and tunnels leading in and out of local villages. One village in particular, Ponson Gaith, was said to have had a bungalow which was not a bungalow. A local milkman told us he used to sit in his milk float early in the morning and watch as a coach turned up. 30 people would leave the bungalow, get on the coach and then it drove away. A few minutes later, another coach would turn up and 30 people would get off the coach and go inside the bungalow. This all sounds wildly crazy until you take a look around and notice the amount of bunkers in the area. A few miles across the Lizard Peninsula is a place called Poldhu Cove. This place is another historical site because on this site Marconi made the first transatlantic wireless transmissions. The site has long been since bulldozed but you can still see the foundations of the building and the foundations of the antenna that he used. A monument to Marconi's achievements stands at the cliff top to commemorate the history that happened here. Down on the beach though, there is an indicator that a cable lands here. A set of locked manhole covers go all the way up to Goonhilly. There is almost no mention of an undersea cable landing here, and there is nothing marked on any charts. I did however find an old map on the internet which did indeed show that TAT9 was installed in 1992, but was retired in 2004. The official story is that it has been cut and removed because it was a hazard to shipping. Back at RNAS Culdrose, the GTN ring continues all the way up to Truro, out to Tresillian and up to Fradden. Before we venture up to Fradden, we should take a detour towards the town of St Austell. Just outside of St Austell there is a place called Pentuan. The beach at Pentuan is a private beach that is owned by a holiday park. Just off the slipway from the beach, we have our telltale lock manhole covers. The reason they are here is because the latest and most modern transatlantic ring cable, TAT14, lands on this beach. There are 2 small unmarked diamonds, but that's all the indication that there is. TAT14 is the big cable. It was brought into service in 2001 and has a current capacity of 9.38 terabits per second, although it's currently only operating at just over 3 terabits per second, so there's still plenty of capacity for the future. A quick search on the internet brings up the consortium service agreement for TAT14. It clearly states that BT is responsible for the segment T3, which includes the BT cable station at Widmouth, the intermediate station at Pentuan, and the duct between these 2 stations in the United Kingdom. Now we know that there is an intermediate landing station somewhere around here, so let's take a look to try and find it. Directly across the road is a farm. It's also owned by the holiday park. One of the farm buildings has no windows but only louvers. This is consistent with having telecoms equipment inside. There is however no way to know for sure. Things do get a little bit strange though when we see a green van box close to this building, and printed on the box is Bude furniture clearance. This is very interesting as Bude is over 60 kilometres away. Bude of course does have a GCHQ facility, so could this be housing intercept equipment, or could it have brought intercept equipment onto the site and the box was left here? A further wider look around the area reveals a set of locked manhole covers which lead all the way into the small fishing town of Mevagissey. The locked covers go directly to the Mevagissey telephone exchange. This exchange is most likely the intermediate landing station for TAT14. A quick planning search reveals that in 1999 BT applied to increase the size of the Mevagissey telephone exchange. The reason given for the planning request was to modernise the telecommunications equipment. As we all know, modern telecommunication equipment gets smaller. What they failed to mention is that plans to install the TAT14 cable system were probably moving ahead, and that critical national infrastructure was going to be installed in the sleepy touristy fishing town of Mevagissey. Now that we know that this building is probably not the intermediate landing station, we have to ask ourselves what it is. Well, it's possible that the cable is supplied here with high voltage power. A nearby electricity transformer has a staggering capacity of 5 megawatts. As we leave Pentuan, we can follow the duct by the locked manhole covers. It travels all the way to Bude, where it meets the other segment from the Atlantic. This cable is BT's main transatlantic trunk into the USA and Europe. About 15 kilometres from St Austell, in the middle of the county, is Fradden. At Fradden is a cable and wireless building by a popular shopping complex. We can clearly see the dual massive backup generator exhausts. This building is clearly visible from the main A30 road. short distance away is Western Power Distribution's facility, and it contains equipment used by Virgin Media and Surf Telecom. Three kilometres north of Fradden is this building at Indian Queens. Out the back there are three portable buildings with fire suppression systems. This facility is operated by Virgin Media, but Level 3 and Flag have equipment here so that Virgin Media can interface with their systems. Two kilometres northwest of here is a strange area called Black Cross. Do you remember down at Land's End when I mentioned the Verizon duct left by Land's End Airport? Well, that duct snakes all the way through Hale, Camborne and up past Newquay, and it crosses the GCN ring here. This place is very quiet, and I get the feeling there is a lot more here than meets the eye. The two duct networks carry on north. Another duct that runs with the main A30 also runs north, as does a Surf Telecom fibre cable across the tops of the pylons. So we now have four routes heading north. At a place called Valley Truckle, we see a massive convergence. The GTN ring, the Verizon duct and the TAP14 duct all converge here on the green. When you are here you get the distinct feeling you're being watched. Notice the new war memorial, which was installed in 2014. There are a lot of new crosses and war memorials positioned in stupid places along the cable routes. It's possible they are built on top of buried equipment. After all, the ground beneath the war memorial is probably the most secure place in the country. If anyone was seen digging it up, people would be outraged and probably call the police. We travel north towards Bude, heading for our next stop, Widmouth Bay. But just before we venture down to the beach, at the top of the hill overlooking the bay is this disused BT landing station for TAT3 and later TAT8. Although the building is apparently not in use, there are signs that it is being maintained. There is also evidence of a very large underground bunker. Just south of Bude is the picturesque beach of Widmouth Bay. Two cables land here, Europe-India Gateway and GLO1. Europe-India Gateway is a 15,000 kilometre cable that lands in 12 countries all the way to Mumbai, India. It's a 3.84 terabit cable that was installed in 2011. It's a consortium-based system with BT, Cable & Wireless and Verizon being investors. GLO1 is a cable operated by Nigerian telecoms company Globacom. It is 9,800 kilometres long and lands in 8 countries. It has a capacity of 2.5 terabits. The exact location the cables land is again by a lifeguard hut. There are old post office manhole covers in the car park, but these have POHD marked on them. HD could mean high density or it could mean heat detector. Some very important manholes have got heat detectors in them so that if they are opened by unauthorised people, they sound an alarm and the police are called. Both of the cables that land at Widmouth land here at Creethorne Farm, which is only 1 kilometre inland and along this river. You can just see the building in the distance. This is actually the Apollo cable landing station, so 3 major cables land in this building. The Apollo North cable lands on Crooklets Beach, which is about 2.5 kilometres away. The Apollo cable system is a joint venture between Cable & Wireless and Alcatel, although Level 3 recently purchased a large chunk of the system's capacity to increase the diversity of their network. It's a 2-cable system, with both cables running from the USA, with the North cable arriving here in Bude and the South cable arriving in France. The geographic location of this station means it is not visible from any roads. You actually have to drive onto the farm to get to it. We can follow the signs for C&W CL site or Cable & Wireless cable landing site. The cable landing station is tucked away at the end of the poultry farm. Driving up towards Bude, we arrive at the Kings Hill Industrial Estate area. The estate is built in two halves. In the top section closest to the main road is this imposing building. We had to do a lot of digging to find out what this building is, as there are no records of it being built on the Cornwall Council Planning Register. Eventually we found out this building is owned and operated by Verizon. This is very interesting as Verizon do not own any undersea cables landing in Cornwall. This back road leads us onto the main road into Bude, but we can turn onto the main Kings Hill Industrial Estate. There are two communication buildings on this part of the estate. The first we come to is this one. This is a cable and wireless building. We don't think any cables land here, it's probably linking into the other buildings into the area. The second building is this one. This is BT Kings Hill. It's a big one. This is because this is the main TAT-14 cable landing station. And together with the Mevagissey telephone exchange, these two buildings supply most of the country's overseas data capacity. BT is by far the biggest ISP in the UK, with over 9 million broadband customers' data running through this building at any one time. TAT-14 arrives here by the duct from Pentuan, and it also lands on Crooklets Beach just up the road, and it forms a ring. Just outside of BT Kings Hill is an electricity transformer. Surf Telecom connect into the undersea carriers here. As we head down into Bude, there is a small turning off the main road. Down the end of this road is the level 3 landing station for the Atlantic Crossing 2 cable, and also the UK Island Crossing 2 cable. These two cables both land at Crooklets. This station works with White Sands down at Land's End to form a ring network using the Atlantic Crossing 1 and 2 cables. The connection between the two stations is probably in the GTN ring or running up the main A30. Our last beach in Cornwall is Crooklets, one of the most popular beaches in North Cornwall. 4 cables land here: TAT-14, Atlantic Crossing 2, Apollo North and UK Island Crossing 2. Judging by the look at this concrete wall, I would expect some cables to leave the beach by this way, although it's also possible that some of the cables leave up via the main slipway. Well, that's just about it. You've seen all of the cables and the buildings in Cornwall that supply the UK with international telephone lines and the internet. But there is just one more thing. We couldn't finish without showing you this place. GCHQ Bude. This is where all of the intercepted data from all of the cables around the world ends up. In here they have the capability to record the entire internet and store it for up to a month. Sophisticated computers running complex search algorithms sift through terrifying amounts of data, looking for intelligence that's used by the UK security services. We also supply that data to the American NSA. It's one of our biggest exports, your data. It's important to remember, in an ever-connected world, that data freely flows off your homeland shores and into other nations in the blink of an eye. GCHQ is legally allowed to collect the data from foreign sources. This includes American citizens. GCHQ then makes all of this intelligence available to the US government as part of our special relationship. This is a backdoor way of the US government spying on its own people, and the same probably happens to us in the UK. We must also keep an open mind as to what data is flowing beneath our feet. A leaked document from the US Department of Homeland Security lists 16 buildings critical to the security of the United States, 6 of which are cable landing stations in Cornwall. Goonhilly, White Sands, Skewjack, AC2, TAT-14 and Apollo. This was the list in 2008, so it's possible other buildings are on the list now. It's quite clear to see why these stations are on the list. Goonhilly has access to Middle East cables, Skewjack to the India and Pakistan area, Creethorne Farm to Africa and Asia, and TAT-14 for all of Europe. The level 3 stations, with the massive sizes, high security and publicised low capacity, indicate that they may be the carrier of data from GCHQ to the NSA in the USA. The Apollo cable is also a likely candidate, as Cable and Wireless were implicated by Edward Snowden as a partner to GCHQ. But let's not forget Verizon. In 2013, Verizon were named as a company which gives over the data of its customers to GCHQ. So it's possible that the Verizon network could also be being used by GCHQ to transit the intercepted data from Land's End up to Bude. Verizon having a major presence in the Land's End and Bude areas without operating undersea cables and having a twin duct network that connects the two areas means that it's possible the data from the intercept devices is being carried to GCHQ Bude across this network. But then again, it could also be carried by Cable and Wireless up the GTN ring, or they could have a separate dedicated cable. It's a sticky situation for a telecoms operator to be in. Cable and Wireless recently came under fire for handing the data of another telecoms operator over to the spies at GCHQ. Every telecoms operator has a duty to protect its customers' data privacy. And whilst we all realise the need for measured access to intelligence, the indiscriminate bulk collection that happens in Cornwall is becoming a growing issue and one that is not going to go away. New undersea cables are now actively avoiding traditional cable routes into the UK because of the potential for negative publicity should there be any more leaks. Microsoft and Facebook recently announced it's going to build a new super cable, and they have decided that it's going to land in Spain. This is most likely because they want to avoid Cornwall at all costs. So what about the future? Well, cables will still land in the UK. A brand new super cable has just landed at Breen, which is about 120 kilometres away from Bude. This cable has changed everything. The technology is fascinating and based around the fact that the true speed of light can only be reached inside a vacuum. The Hibernia Express cable is effectively a hollow fibre optic tube with all of the air removed. This means the laser light can travel as close to the true speed of light all the way to the USA. This technology, coupled with a very cleverly designed route, has shaved 6 milliseconds off of the time it takes to cross the Atlantic. Where Atlantic Crossing 1 took 65 milliseconds, Hibernia Express now takes just 59. This 6 millisecond difference has seen the financial trading industry move across to this cable. If you remember, the stock exchange must run on the fastest possible service for the integrity of the world's financial system to be maintained. The Hibernia Express system has a staggering capacity of 53 terabits per second. But all of the other cables are nowhere near the end of their life. Because of the eye-watering cost of installing a modern cable system, the very latest were designed to be easily upgradable as new technologies become available. Graphene optical switch technology is theoretically capable of upgrading some of the existing cable landing stations so that they can carry data in the petabit and exabit range. So maybe Cornwall will remain at the cutting edge of communications for a few more years yet.